The sky above Zytheria was dark, streaked with smoke and fire. Cities lay in ruins, and the ground trembled under the weight of constant battles. Two species had fought for decades: the Zytherians, led by their powerful queen, and humans, known for their resilience and clever tactics. War had taken everything from both sides: homes, lives, and trust, but neither would give up easily. Queen Meliara sat on her throne in the central command ship, her long fingers tapping nervously on the metallic armrest. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the holographic battlefield below. She saw ships explode, soldiers charging, and entire buildings crumble. Despite her usual confidence, a feeling of unease crept into her chest. Today, something different was happening. Her child, Prince Kieran, had wandered too far. He was young, curious, and fearless, a trait that usually made Meliara proud, but now it filled her with fear. Kieran had always wanted to explore the world outside the palace walls. Guards had warned him to stay close, but he had slipped away while the battle raged. "Mother, Kieran is near the ruins of Sector 5, a young officer said, urgency in his voice. Meliara's sharp eyes focused on the location. The sector was filled with human soldiers. Panic rose in her chest as she realized the danger. Human troops were skilled and unpredictable, and there was no guarantee Kieran would survive if he encountered them alone. Then something happened that stopped her in her tracks. A human soldier, dressed in a simple gray uniform, dashed into the danger zone. The soldier moved carefully but quickly, dodging falling debris, leaping over gaps in the ruins, and avoiding patrols. Meliara's eyes widened. Humans rarely took risks like this. Most were cautious, strategic, and slow to act outside orders. Yet this one, this single human, had ignored everything for a child. Captain Ethan Hayes had noticed the small figure, trapped under rubble. The building had partially collapsed from a nearby explosion, and Kieran's small body was pinned under broken metal and stone. Ethan's heart raced as he calculated the safest path to reach him. There was no time for hesitation. He sprinted forward, sliding under a fallen beam. A loud crack echoed as a nearby wall shifted, sending shards of concrete scattering. Ethan's boots skidded, but he kept his focus on the child. Around him, human soldiers shouted orders and gunfire echoed, yet he seemed almost untouched by the chaos. It was as if his determination shielded him from fear. Kieran whimpered, frightened and unable to free himself. When he saw the human approaching, his eyes widened with surprise. He had seen humans before on the battlefield, but never one coming to help him. Fear mixed with a strange sense of hope. Ethan reached the rubble and quickly assessed the situation. He used a piece of broken metal to lift a heavy beam, then pulled Kieran from beneath the wreckage. The child's small arms clung to him instinctively, and Ethan kept his body between Kieran and the remaining dangers. Queen Meliara watched silently from her command ship, her mind unable to understand what she was seeing. This human was risking his life for her child, the future prince of her people, the next leader of Zytheria. Normally, humans fought for survival, strategy, or orders. They rarely acted out of pure care, and yet here was proof that they could. Ethan heard the sound of a distant explosion and knew he had little time. Alien drones patrolled the ruins, searching for both humans and rogue Zytherian targets. He darted across the open space, keeping Kieran close to his chest. He jumped over cracks in the ground, rolled under fallen structures, and even used his surroundings to block enemy sensors. Every step was precise, every movement calculated to keep the child safe. Kieran, clinging to Ethan, began to calm down. The warmth and steadiness of the human soldier gave him a strange sense of safety. He peeked over Ethan's shoulder, looking at the burning ruins, and whispered, Who are you?" Ethan smiled briefly despite the danger. "Just someone who wants to help," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm not your enemy. I'm here to get you out safely." Meanwhile, back on her throne, Queen Meliara felt an unfamiliar feeling, admiration mixed with unease. Could it be possible that humans were capable of compassion on this scale? Could one human change the course of her war? She had never thought such a thing possible. The drones were closing in. Ethan glanced around and saw a narrow path between two half-collapsed buildings. It was risky, but it offered the only chance to escape. He adjusted his grip on Chiron and sprinted toward it. Metal beams fell behind him, sparks flew, and the air was thick with smoke. But step by step, he moved forward, guided by determination and instinct. Chiron's small arms tightened around Ethan's neck as they ran. He could feel the human's heartbeat, steady and strong. It was nothing like the rigid discipline of his guards. There was a life in this human, a bravery that did not rely on weapons or orders but on will and heart. Finally, they reached the safer area of the ruins. Ethan lowered Chiron to the ground, scanning for threats. "We're not out of danger yet," he warned. "Stay close and don't panic." Chiron nodded, his eyes wide with awe. "You saved me." Ethan crouched beside him. "That's what people do. We protect those who need help." The Queen's holographic display flickered as she watched the scene unfold. She felt a shift inside her, a realization that humans were more than the enemy. One human had risked his life for her child. That act alone challenged everything she believed about the species she had fought for so long. For a moment, Meliara could not move or speak. Her advisors leaned forward, waiting for her command, but she could not give one. Her mind replayed the scene. The human rushing through danger, the calm determination in his eyes, the way he had shielded Chiron from harm. It was unlike anything she had seen before. Ethan knew they needed to keep moving. He lifted Chiron again, carefully avoiding debris, and moved toward the safe zone marked by neutral signals the Queen had established for civilians and prisoners. The drones followed, but Ethan's quick thinking allowed him to evade them. He ducked into a collapsed tunnel, crawled under fallen walls, and finally reached a temporary safe area behind a barricade of rubble. Chiron looked around, amazed at how the human had navigated the chaos. I thought I would die," he admitted, softly. Ethan shook his head. "Not today. You're safe now." From her command chair, Meliara's expression softened. For the first time, she questioned everything. Could humans truly be so courageous and selfless? Could one human's action change the course of a conflict that had lasted decades? Her advisors whispered nervously, sensing the Queen's hesitation. Some suggested retaliation, attacking the humans immediately, but Meliara's gaze remained fixed on the scene. She knew in her heart that the war might be bigger than strategy or power. Perhaps it was also about understanding, trust, and the courage to do what was right. Ethan settled behind the barricade with Chiron, catching his breath. The child's small hand rested in his, holding on tightly. Outside, the world was chaos, but inside that small corner of safety, a bond had formed, one that neither species could ignore. Queen Meliara finally spoke, her voice calm but resolute. "Remember this, my advisors. One act of courage can change everything." And on that battlefield, as smoke rose and the distant cries of war echoed, a single human had shown the Zetherian Queen that bravery and heart could surpass fear and hatred. The first step toward change had begun. The safe corner behind the rubble was small and quiet compared to the chaos outside. Ethan crouched, still holding Chiron close to shield him. The boy's small body trembled, both from fear and exhaustion. Ethan whispered reassuring words, speaking calmly. "It's okay, Chiron. You're safe now. No one can hurt you here." Chiron looked at Ethan, eyes wide with awe. Why did you help me?" he asked softly. Ethan gave a faint smile, brushing a lock of hair from the boy's forehead. "Because no one deserves to be hurt if I can help them. That's what I do." Chiron's small hands rested against Ethan's chest, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath his palms. The boy could not understand fully, but he felt the warmth, the protection, and the honesty of this human. It was unlike the guards who followed, orders without thought, or the drones that obeyed commands without question. Outside, the battlefield remained dangerous. Human soldiers were still advancing cautiously, and rogue Zetherian drones scanned for intruders. Ethan knew that their temporary safety could not last long. He needed a plan to get Chiron fully out of danger. Listen, Kyron, Ethan said, standing and carefully pulling the boy to his feet. We need to move. Can you follow me? Kieran nodded, trusting the human completely. He had seen Ethan face danger with calm courage, and that was enough for him to believe he would survive. Ethan led the boy through narrow passages between collapsed buildings. He used the rubble as cover, keeping low to avoid drones and enemy patrols. He pointed to broken walls and debris, showing Kieran which paths were safe. Stay close. If you see a drone, duck and follow my lead, Ethan instructed. Kyron obeyed, imitating Ethan's movements carefully. He felt a strange sense of pride. He was learning from a human, someone who acted bravely and wisely even in the worst danger. Meanwhile, Queen Meliara hovered in her command ship, watching the scene unfold. Her eyes remained fixed on the holographic feed, and her mind was a storm of thoughts. She had never seen such determination in a human before. Most humans fought because they had no choice, but this one, this single human, was risking his life willingly. Her advisors shifted nervously. Your Majesty, one said, that human should be eliminated. He is dangerous. He has infiltrated our territory and endangered the prince. Meliara's gaze remained on Ethan. Dangerous, she said softly. No. He is remarkable. Observe how he moves, how he protects my son. There is strength here that we cannot ignore. The advisors murmured, uncertain how to respond. The queen had never let emotion influence her strategy, but something about this human, his courage, his quick thinking, his morality, was changing her perspective. Back on the ground, Ethan and Kieran reached a small street partially blocked by fallen beams. Ethan paused, scanning the area. He noticed a drone hovering nearby, scanning for movement. Its sensors flickered, and it was about to detect them. Kieran, stay behind me, Ethan whispered, pressing the boy against the wall. He took a deep breath, then dashed toward the drone's side, throwing a small rock to distract it. The drone turned instantly, and Ethan used the opportunity to slip past with Kieran. The boy's heart pounded. How did you do that? He asked. Ethan grinned faintly. You have to think fast. Use your mind, not just your body. Always look for a way out. Kieran nodded, trying to memorize every move. He was learning more than survival. He was learning courage, cleverness, and the value of helping others, even those different from himself. As they moved deeper into the ruins, Ethan noticed a group of rogue Zetharian soldiers advancing toward them. They were armed, moving quickly, and seemed determined to stop anyone who crossed their path. Ethan's mind raced. Fighting them directly could end badly, especially with the boy in his arms. He scanned the surroundings and spotted a partially collapsed building. There was a narrow tunnel leading beneath it, hidden from plain sight. It was risky, but it offered the only chance to avoid confrontation. Kyron, this way, Ethan whispered, leading him toward the tunnel. The boy hesitated. It's dark. Ethan knelt, making eye contact. I'll be with you. Nothing can touch you if you stay close. Kieran took a deep breath and followed. The tunnel was narrow, the walls cracked and jagged, but it offered perfect cover. Ethan led them carefully, using a flashlight to illuminate the path. He watched every shadow, every movement, making sure they were not followed. Above them, Queen Meliara's attention did not waver. She watched the human's careful decisions, his protective actions, and the way he kept the child calm. Each moment reinforced her growing respect and admiration. For decades, she had seen humans as clever but weak, unable to match Zetharian strength. Yet here was one defying every expectation. The rogue soldiers finally reached the edge of the tunnel. Their scanners could not penetrate the rubble and shadows. Frustrated, they moved on, unaware of the human and child escaping beneath their feet. Kieran let out a quiet sigh of relief. We are safe, he whispered. Ethan smiled, though he remained alert. Not completely yet. Stay quiet until we reach the outer perimeter. The tunnel led them to a partially open street on the outskirts of the battle zone. Human reinforcements were nearby, and Ethan signaled to them. They approached cautiously, scanning for threats. When they saw Ethan and the child, Their relief was evident. One soldier stepped forward. "Captain Hayes, is the boy safe?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, keep him close. We need to get him out of this zone entirely." Chiron looked up at the group of humans. For the first time, he saw them not as enemies but as protectors. The boy's eyes shone with trust, and he clung slightly to Ethan as they prepared to move. Meanwhile, Meliara's mind raced. She realized that humans were capable of something her people often overlooked: compassion, selflessness, and bravery that came from choice, not obligation. One human had just risked life and death to save her child. One human had changed everything she thought she knew. Her advisors were growing impatient. "Your Majesty, these humans are cunning. You cannot trust them," one said. Meliara shook her head. "This is not about strategy or cunning. Watch closely. One act of courage can reveal the true nature of a species. One act can decide the future." Ethan guided Kieran to a temporary safe zone marked by neutral signals. It was a small shelter hidden from patrols and lightly guarded by humans who understood the importance of the mission. Chiron was placed down gently and Ethan knelt beside him. "Here we are," he said softly. "You're safe for now. No one can harm you here." Chiron looked around, eyes wide with wonder. I thought everyone wanted to hurt me," he admitted. Ethan smiled. "Not everyone. Some people will fight to protect you, even if you are different from them. That's what makes us human." The boy processed this carefully. It was strange to see someone from the enemy side risk so much for him, but the feeling of safety and trust was undeniable. Above, Queen Meliara watched silently. Her advisors whispered warnings and suggestions, but she remained unmoved. She had learned something she could not unsee. Humanity was unpredictable, yes, but in ways that were both dangerous and remarkable. They could be a threat, but they could also be allies. The Queen's eyes softened as she watched Ethan interact with Kieran. She saw patience, courage, and moral strength, qualities her own soldiers valued but rarely saw in their enemies. It was a moment of revelation. One human had demonstrated what many Zetherians never could: a pure, fearless act of protection for someone completely defenseless. The battlefield continued to rage in the distance, fires burning and smoke rising into the sky. But in that small safe zone, a bond had formed. A human and a child had faced impossible danger together, and in doing so, had shown that courage and compassion could exist even amidst war. Meliara leaned back slightly in her command chair. "Perhaps the war does not have to end in destruction," she whispered to herself. "Perhaps it can end in understanding." And on the ground, Ethan and Chiron prepared for the next steps, unaware that their actions were already reshaping the perspective of an entire species. The first stage of trust had begun and the seeds of peace were quietly being planted, one courageous act at a time. The safe zone was quiet now, but Ethan could not relax. The air still smelled of smoke and metal, reminders of the battle raging not far away. He kept Karen close, alert to every sound. Even though the immediate danger had passed, the boy was exhausted, and Ethan knew that remaining here too long could invite new threats. "Kieran, I need you to stay calm and follow my instructions exactly," Ethan said softly. "We have to move to a more secure location, one where the fighting can't reach us." Kieran nodded, his small hand gripping Ethan's sleeve. Where are we going?" he asked, eyes wide but trusting. Ethan crouched to meet him. "At eye level. There's a safe area further from here. Only humans know about it. You'll be completely protected there, and no Zetherian can harm you." The boy seemed to hesitate. "What about my mother? Will she come?" Ethan paused, considering carefully. "I believe she will, and when she does, we'll make sure she sees that you're safe. But for now, we need to move quietly." Kieran's eyes filled with determination. "Okay," he whispered, gripping Ethan's hand tightly. "I'll follow you." They left the temporary shelter, moving cautiously along narrow streets that had been partially destroyed by explosions. Ethan led Kyron, watching shadows and listening for the faintest sound of patrols or drones. Every step required careful thought. One wrong move could expose them. As they advanced, Ethan noticed signs of recent movement: a broken drone, footprints in dust, and traces of Zetherian energy blasts. It was clear that enemy forces were close, but they hadn't detected the human and child yet. Kieran shivered slightly. "I hear them," he whispered. Ethan held up a finger. "Not yet. Just stay close. Trust me, okay?" The boy nodded. His small body pressed against Ethan as they moved silently. They reached a building partially collapsed on one side. Ethan peered inside. The interior was dark, but offered good cover. He whispered, "This is our chance to hide and rest for a moment. Stay low, Kieran." Inside, the air was dusty, and broken beams lay scattered across the floor. Ethan guided the boy to a corner where they could crouch behind debris. "Take a deep breath. You're safe for now," he said, brushing dust from the boy's shoulder. Kieran looked at him with admiration. "You're brave," he whispered. Ethan smiled faintly, though his mind remained alert. "Bravery is not about not being scared. It's about doing what's right, even when you are." Kieran considered this carefully, repeating the words quietly to himself. Doing what's right. The tunnel they had avoided earlier led them to a place where human reinforcements had already gathered. Ethan motioned for them to wait, keeping Kieran low. The humans were surprised but relieved to see Ethan alive and protecting the child. "Captain Hayes," one soldier said, "the boy is with you?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. We need to get him to the safe perimeter immediately. Follow my lead." Kieran felt a surge of trust. He was surrounded by humans now, all willing to protect him. He could feel it in their posture, their careful movements, and the way they kept their weapons ready, without panicking. Meanwhile, high above the battlefield, Queen Meliara watched Ethan's progress with keen interest. The human's careful, precise actions impressed her more with each moment. He wasn't just lucky, he was strategic, cautious, and compassionate. Every decision he made reflected thought and morality. Her advisors whispered warnings again. "Your Majesty, the humans are clever. This one is cunning and unpredictable. He may manipulate the boy for his own purposes." Meliara shook her head. "No, observe his actions. He protects, not manipulates. His bravery and choices are not for gain. This is true courage, and it cannot be ignored." Her attention returned to the holographic feed, showing Ethan and the boy navigating through ruined buildings. The human continued to assess every threat, keeping Kieran calm and avoiding unnecessary danger. Meliara felt something she had not felt in decades, a flicker of hope. Back on the ground, Ethan led Kieran through narrow alleys toward the edge of the conflict zone. He knew the Zetherians would intensify their search soon, but the boy's safety was his top priority. As they moved, they passed a small group of Zetherian scouts who had split from the main force. Ethan crouched behind a ruined wall, pulling Kieran down with him. He studied the scouts carefully. They were scanning the area, unaware of Ethan's presence. "Kieran," Ethan whispered, "stay perfectly still and follow my lead." The boy nodded, his small hands pressed against his chest. Ethan threw a small stone in the opposite direction. It clinked against metal, drawing the scouts' attention. They moved toward the sound, giving Ethan and Kieran the opportunity to slip away silently. Kieran gasped softly. "You tricked them." Ethan whispered a small laugh. "Sometimes you have to be clever to survive. Brute force isn't always the answer." They continued, finally reaching a larger open space that led to a hidden underground passage known only to human scouts. Ethan had discovered it during previous missions. It was risky to enter, but the tunnel offered the safest route to the human perimeter. Inside the tunnel, darkness surrounded them. Ethan activated a small light to guide their path. Kieran followed closely, his trust in the human unwavering. Every step echoed in the tunnel, but Ethan moved carefully, minimizing sound and checking for traps or patrols. The boy began to feel a strange mix of fear and excitement. "This is Scary, he admitted. Ethan smiled. Yes, but courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward even when you are afraid. Kieran repeated the words softly, to himself. Each step in the tunnel reinforced a lesson he would carry forever: bravery, trust, and the power of selfless protection. Meanwhile, Meliara watched silently from above. She had made a decision. The human had demonstrated a level of skill and morality that demanded recognition. He had saved her child not for reward, not for fame, but out of instinctive compassion and courage. She realized that war could be avoided if such acts were acknowledged. Her advisors argued, but she ignored them. This human, he is different. He is not like the others. Observe and learn. Perhaps we can end the conflict before more blood is shed. Back in the tunnel, Ethan and Kieran emerged near the edge of the human-controlled safe zone. Reinforcements greeted them carefully, scanning the perimeter for threats. Ethan handed Kieran to one of the guards. Keep him safe. Do not let him out of your sight. The boy looked up at Ethan, eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, he whispered. Ethan knelt, placing a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. You don't have to thank me. Just remember what you've learned today. Courage isn't about fighting. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Kieran nodded, understanding in a way that words could not fully capture. The reinforcements escorted them to a secure area, out of sight from any potential Zitharian patrols. Kieran looked around, noticing the calm and organized environment. He felt a sense of relief and safety unlike anything he had known. Above, Queen Meliara studied the human from her command ship. The boy was safe, and the human remained calm and strategic. She realized that this single act could change the fate of the war. One human had shown that courage, intelligence, and compassion could coexist, and perhaps these qualities were stronger than any weapon. Her advisors pressed her again. Your Majesty, the humans cannot be trusted. Their cunning is dangerous. Meliara shook her head. No, this is not about cunning. It is about character. Observe how one act of protection can influence an entire situation. One human's choices may end this war before it grows worse. Ethan returned to the perimeter guard, ensuring Kieran was safe and calm. He looked at the boy and smiled. Rest for now. We've made it this far. We're not done, but you're safe at last. Kieran smiled faintly, exhausted but filled with admiration. I trust you, Ethan. I feel safe because of you. Ethan nodded, quietly proud. Good. Remember that feeling. It's the feeling that helps you make the right choices, even in the darkest times. As night fell over the war-torn landscape, a quiet understanding began to form. A human had risked everything to save a child, and in doing so, had begun to change the hearts and minds of those who had thought themselves invincible. Queen Meliara's decision was made quietly. She would observe the human and perhaps, just perhaps, allow the possibility of peace to grow from his courage and actions. The first seeds of change were planted, and the future of both species hung in a delicate balance. And the night was quiet, but the tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. Ethan remained alert, sitting near the edge of the secure perimeter. Kieran slept nearby, his small chest rising and falling slowly. Ethan watched over him, aware that their respite could be temporary. Even though the immediate danger had passed, Ethan knew the Zitharians would not give up easily. They were a proud and relentless species, and the human forces had only scratched the surface of the conflict. But for now, the child was safe, and that was what mattered most. Ethan leaned back against a wall, allowing his mind to relax just slightly. He thought about the boy's mother and the queen. He wondered if Meliara truly understood the value of what he had done. Saving a life, especially one so precious, could not be ignored, even by the most hardened ruler. Kieran stirred, opening his eyes slowly. Ethan, he whispered. Ethan leaned closer. Yes, buddy? What is it? Kieran hesitated. Do you think my mother knows I'm safe? Ethan placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. I believe she does. And I think she will see it soon, but even if she doesn't, you're alive and protected. That's the most important thing right now. Kieran nodded, trusting Ethan completely. I'm glad you're here, he said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. I'm glad too, Kieran. But remember, courage isn't just about fighting. It's about making choices to protect others, even when it's difficult. The boy absorbed the words, understanding more than his age suggested. He had already witnessed acts of bravery and selflessness today, lessons he would carry for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, high above, Queen Meliara observed from her command ship. Her eyes focused on the secure perimeter where Ethan and Kieran rested. She had instructed her forces to hold back, to watch carefully without interfering. Her advisors protested, urging her to strike while the humans were distracted. No, Meliara said firmly. This is not a moment for violence. This human has shown more than courage. He has shown compassion, wisdom, and discipline. These qualities cannot be ignored. Perhaps they are the key to ending this conflict before it destroys everything. Advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Your Majesty, allowing the human to act freely may embolden them. They may use his actions against us. Meliara shook her head. No. Observe carefully. True strength is not just power. It is the choices one makes, the morality that guides those choices. This human understands that, and his actions may teach others as well. Back on the ground, Ethan moved quietly, checking the perimeter. He noticed signs of recent Zetherian activity, distant energy signatures, faint sounds of machinery, but nothing immediately threatening. He had to be ready for any sudden attack. Ethan's thoughts drifted briefly to strategy. He considered approaching the Queen directly, not with weapons, not with hostility, but with proof of what had occurred, how he had protected her child. Perhaps she could be persuaded that continuing the war was unnecessary, that humanity was capable of compassion and honor, even in the face of conflict. Kieran stirred again, pulling gently at Ethan's sleeve. Ethan, can we see her? My mother? Ethan crouched down to meet the boy's gaze. I think soon, Kieran. But we have to be careful. We cannot rush, and we cannot make mistakes. When the time is right, you will see her, and she will see that you are safe. The boy nodded, his eyes reflecting both hope and fear. He understood that the world was bigger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined, but he trusted Ethan to guide him safely through it. As dawn approached, the perimeter became busier. Human reinforcements arrived, and Ethan coordinated their positions to ensure the boy's safety. Each human soldier followed his instructions carefully, trusting his experience and judgment. Suddenly, a signal came from above. Meliara's ship had moved closer, broadcasting a peaceful message. The humans were cautious, unsure of her intentions, but Ethan recognized it immediately. He knelt beside Kieran. This may be it, buddy. The Queen wants to speak and we have to be ready. Kieran's eyes widened. Really? She wants to see me? Ethan nodded. Yes. And she will understand that you are safe because of your choices. And mine. The signal translated into a holographic projection. Queen Meliara appeared before the humans, regal and imposing, but with a calm demeanor that surprised many. Her eyes locked onto Ethan, assessing him silently. You have protected my child, she said, her voice steady. And in doing so, you have demonstrated qualities that even I did not expect from your species. Bravery, loyalty, and compassion, these are rare. Ethan bowed slightly. Your Majesty, I did what I had to do. The child's life was in my hands, and I could not allow harm to come to him. Meliara studied him carefully. I have watched your actions. You did not act for recognition or reward. You acted out of instinct, guided by your moral compass. That is what I respect. The humans around Ethan watched in silence, some in awe, some in cautious disbelief. The Queen's acknowledgement carried weight, and it was clear that she considered him an equal in terms of honor and integrity. Chiron stepped forward slightly, his small form trembling but determined. "Mother, I'm safe," he whispered. Meliara's eyes softened. "Yes, my child. And this human, he ensured it. I see now that there is more to your species than I understood." Ethan stepped closer, carefully giving space but showing readiness to protect the boy if necessary. "Your Majesty, we seek only peace. The child is safe and we wish to prevent further bloodshed. Humanity can coexist if given the chance." Meliara nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are correct. This conflict has caused unnecessary suffering on both sides, but actions speak louder than words. You have proven that one human can make a difference. I will consider your words seriously." Her advisors murmured among themselves, some skeptical, some impressed. Meliara raised a hand, silencing them. "This human has earned my respect. I will not punish him, nor will I harm the boy. The war may continue, but I will ensure that no further attacks target this child. And perhaps we can find a path to peace if such actions continue." Ethan nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. That is all we ask." The projection ended, leaving the humans and the boy in stunned silence. Ethan looked at Chiron, who was now smiling faintly, relief evident in his eyes. "You did it, Ethan," Chiron said. "You really did it. You saved me, and maybe you helped stop the war too." Ethan smiled, though tired. "We took a step, Chiron. One step toward safety, one step toward understanding. The rest will take time, but every action counts." Chiron's eyes sparkled. "I want to be brave like you, Ethan." Ethan ruffled his hair gently. "You already are, Chiron. Bravery isn't about size or strength. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and you've already learned that today." The humans began organizing the perimeter, reinforcing positions and preparing for any potential threats. But Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment. For the first time, he saw that even small acts of courage could influence events on a much larger scale. High above, Queen Meliara watched the humans with a mixture of caution and newfound respect. She realized that one human, guided by honor and moral strength, had demonstrated possibilities she had not considered. Perhaps the war did not need to be endless. Perhaps understanding, courage, and protection could form the foundation for peace. Ethan sat beside Chiron, keeping a careful watch. The boy rested again, exhausted but safe. For now, the immediate danger had passed, and the humans' actions had changed the course of events in ways neither side had anticipated. The first rays of sunlight touched the perimeter, highlighting the damage from previous battles but also illuminating hope. Hope that even in the darkest times, one human's courage could spark a change, saving a life and perhaps one day ending a war. And with that thought, Ethan allowed himself a brief moment to rest, knowing that the battle for peace was only beginning, but also knowing that one act of bravery could shift the tides of fate for countless lives. The morning sun rose slowly over the war-torn landscape, casting long shadows across the battered ground. Ethan stood near the perimeter, watching carefully as human reinforcements settled into their positions. The calm of the dawn seemed almost unreal after the chaos of the previous day. Yet Ethan knew the true challenge was only beginning, convincing the Queen that peace was possible. Chiron played nearby, his small hands picking up fragments of rocks and examining them with curiosity. Despite the tension, he laughed quietly, and Ethan couldn't help but smile. The boy's joy was contagious, a reminder of why he had risked everything. "Ethan," Chiron's voice cut through the morning stillness. "Do you think my mother will really meet us?" Ethan knelt beside him. "I believe she will, Chiron. She's watching closely. She saw what you went through, and she knows I kept you safe. That matters more than anything else right now." The air trembled slightly, and a low hum reached their ears. Ethan's instincts went immediately on alert. He raised a hand, signaling the human soldiers to stay vigilant. From above, Meliara's ship descended, landing gracefully on a prepared platform. The humans tensed, unsure of her intentions. But Ethan knew better. The hatch opened, revealing Queen Meliara in her full regalia. Her armor gleamed under the morning sun, and her eyes scanned the area before settling on Ethan and Kieran. The human stepped back respectfully, giving her space. Ethan remained rooted to the ground, his stance both confident and protective of the boy. "You have done well," Meliara said, her voice calm but powerful. "Your actions have been observed and your courage cannot be ignored. You did not act for personal gain, but for the protection of life itself." Ethan nodded respectfully. "Your Majesty, I only did what was right. Chiron's life was in danger and I could not stand by. Humanity can live in peace and we wish to prove that to you and your people." Kieran stepped forward cautiously, holding Ethan's hand. "Mother, I'm safe. He saved me." Meliara's eyes softened as she looked at her son. "Yes, my child, and I see now that he is worthy of trust. I misjudged the humans." A moment of silence followed, heavy with significance. The humans and Zetherians alike held their breath, sensing the turning point of the conflict. "I have called my advisors," Meliara continued, "to witness this moment. It is time for a new path, one where unnecessary bloodshed does not define us. I recognize your bravery, Ethan, and I recognize your commitment to life, not war." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty, that is all we seek. A chance to show that cooperation is stronger than conflict." The Queen signaled to her advisors, who approached cautiously. "Observe this human," she said. "He acted without fear, without deceit, and without expectation of reward. That is strength. That is wisdom. We must learn from it." Her advisors murmured, some nodding in agreement, some still hesitant. But Meliara's gaze was unwavering. The war that has lasted for generations has brought suffering to both our worlds. It ends now. Not because of surrender, but because understanding has prevailed. The humans released quiet sighs of relief, but Ethan remained cautious. "Your Majesty, if you truly intend peace, there will be challenges. Trust must be built, and both our peoples must take steps carefully." Meliara inclined her head. "I understand, and I'm willing to take those steps. You have earned my respect, and the respect of those who witness your actions today. Let this be the start of a new era." Kieran smiled brightly, running into the Queen's arms. "Mother, I'm safe. He saved me." Meliara embraced her child tightly, feeling the warmth of life she had feared losing. She looked down at Ethan, eyes filled with gratitude. "You have done more than protect a child. You have given hope to countless lives. For that I owe you more than words can express." Ethan shook his head gently. "Your Majesty, no words are necessary. Seeing Kieran safe is enough, and if this peace can continue, that is the reward." Meliara's expression softened, but there was strength in her resolve. "Very well. Let it be known. The war ends today. I decree that all forces stand down and that our peoples enter a period of dialogue and cooperation. Violence will no longer be the first answer. Let humanity and the Zetherians work together to rebuild what has been lost." The announcement was received with mixed reactions. Some Zetherians cheered, others were silent, unsure if peace could truly last. The human forces remained vigilant but hopeful, understanding that the Queen's word carried the weight of authority unmatched. Ethan stepped closer to Kieran, lowering his voice. "See, buddy? Courage can change things. One action, one choice, can make a difference." Kieran nodded, looking around at the human and Zetherian soldiers cautiously. I think I understand now. Bravery isn't just about fighting, right?" Ethan smiled. "Exactly. It's about protecting life, standing for what's right, and making choices even when it's hard. You've already learned that today." As the day progressed, humans and Zetherians began tentative talks. Ethan acted as a bridge, facilitating dialogue between the two sides, ensuring that mistrust did not overshadow the opportunity for understanding. He shared stories of human compassion, cooperation, and the will to preserve life even in the darkest times. Queen Meliara observed silently, impressed with Ethan's patience and diplomacy. He was not only a warrior but a leader capable of inspiring change. His actions had shifted perspectives, showing that humanity's strength was not just in its technology or numbers, but in its values. By afternoon, tentative agreements had been reached. Medical aid would be shared, reconstruction efforts coordinated, and exchanges of knowledge scheduled. The Zytharians and humans still held caution, but the foundation for lasting peace had been established. Chiron ran between the groups, smiling and laughing, unafraid for the first time. He stopped to wave at both human and Zytharian soldiers, and they waved back, a small but significant gesture of unity. Ethan watched the boy, feeling a sense of fulfillment unlike any other. Saving Chiron had been his mission, but the ripple effect of that choice had grown beyond imagination. He realized that protecting one life could indeed influence countless others, bridging worlds that had once been at war. As the sun began to set, casting warm hues across the horizon, Queen Meliara approached Ethan personally. She extended her hand, a symbolic gesture among her people. "You have my deepest respect, Ethan," she said. "Your actions have ended a conflict that might have lasted for generations. You have shown us that honor, courage, and compassion are stronger than fear or hatred." Ethan took her hand firmly, nodding. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only hope that both our peoples can remember this moment and continue to build on it." Meliara smiled, a rare softness gracing her face. "We will. And you will always be remembered as the human who changed the course of history, who saved my child and gave hope to both our worlds." Chiron ran to Ethan's side, wrapping his arms around his waist. "See, Ethan? You really did it. You saved me and everyone else." Ethan knelt, hugging the boy tightly. "We did it together, Chiron. And now the future is brighter, because we chose to protect life instead of fighting over it." The first stars began to twinkle in the evening sky as the humans and Zytharians gathered, sharing stories, food, and laughter. The scars of war were still present, but a new chapter had begun, one of cooperation, understanding, and mutual respect. Ethan stood quietly, looking up at the stars, reflecting on the journey. One act of bravery, one choice to protect, had changed everything. He realized that heroism was not measured by the battles won, but by the lives saved and the hope inspired. Queen Meliara watched from a distance, holding Chiron close. For the first time in years, she felt peace in her heart. She had seen humanity's potential for good, and she knew that this alliance could grow into something lasting. Ethan's hand rested lightly on the boy's shoulder as they watched the two worlds begin to heal. The conflict that had seemed inevitable was now replaced by a possibility for unity. And all of it had started because a human had chosen to save a child, demonstrating that courage, honor, and compassion could change the course of history. As the night deepened, Ethan finally allowed himself to rest. He knew challenges remained, but the hardest part, the moment that required the greatest bravery, had been accomplished. Chiron slept peacefully, the Queen's presence a comforting shield. And humanity's place in the stars had been strengthened not through conquest, but through the choice to protect, to care, and to inspire hope. The world was no longer defined by conflict. It was defined by the courage to